Oh yes, as you can tell, it's raining. It's raining like you don't get this kind of rain usually in Ireland. It's like tropical, big heavy drops. So it must be a tropical storm coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. Normally, rain in Ireland is like mist. It's not. It's not like when people think it rains a lot in Ireland. Well, it does, but it doesn't. It doesn't piss down like this. It's a misty. It's a misty rain. This is unusual. These big heavy drops, and it's been going all day long. And yeah, so you're going. This will be a first and a last. I think it'll be the first one of the Chronochronicles, where you'll be listening to the sound of raindrops in the background. But it's also the last of the Chronicles, or Chronochronicles, we're going to call it, because this thing is over, really, more or less. And so, I'd like to do this as a kind of a wrap up, but also it's not bad news because one of the things I'm going to I'm planning on relaunching the Velocity of Now as a regular show, but I want to take VON into a new place. It's I mean, the Velocity of Now, when I started it all those years ago, about 5 years ago, must be now 5-6 years ago, on Type 1 radio, with all the guys down there near Brighton in England, uh, Hove, and I had no idea it was going to take off the way it did. And at one point it was on the podcast list. It was the VON was more popular than than the New York Times podcast. So the show had a feeling to it. And there's a chap, Rod, in Australia, said today, one of the things that gives it that quality was the opening theme tune, which I wrote on my old Yamaha synthesizer. It was all done in like half an hour or so, written and recorded, and it's become iconic, that introduction, and it sets the tone up. But I never really thought about it. It's almost like the opening of a magic circle, as this chap said. And now that I think about it, yeah, it kind of does. And I think that opening theme tune gave the show a tremendous amount of energy, and hooked people in. I want to now continue that on a new level. I want to revive the VON, but I want to make it a proper show. I want to really put an effort into getting it out at least once a week if I can manage it, at very minimum once a week. And key to this was to find a way where I could do it properly. And so, thanks to all the people on Patreon, I have bought some decent recording equipment, audio recording equipment, that will be used for the VON, that it can do in such a way I don't have to be sitting at the computer. Like, every time I did it before, I would have to set up excuse me, I would have to set up the recording equipment, the microphone, and all that stuff on the computer, mix and edit it, and a lot of this kind of thing, and it took forever. And it was difficult and tricky, and I was never ever happy with the sound quality. And for my videos as well, I've never been happy with the sound quality for them either. So, although it has improved in recent ones. So so thanks to the Patreon subscribers, and thank you. The first investment I've made is in a decent portable audio recording system. So this will allow me to make it much easier for me to do the VONs on the fly, so I don't have to set up a computer every time I'm ready to make a show. Because you can see from these Corona, I've got like a really bad itchy throat. You can see from these Chronicles that I can talk to the cows come home. And so it was never a case that I ran out of things to say on VON. It was literally the annoying element of having to set everything up at a computer all the time, and that made it difficult. And so the Chronicles filled that gap for a while, doing these daily, and it showed me again that I can, if I think differently, I can produce more. And so that's, like I always say, good things come out of crises. And, nothing is, a crisis or an issue is a challenge, and challenges create solutions. And one of the solutions I came out of this was, well, I developed this format here, sitting in the car, talking to you like this, and it took off and it's done quite well. And roughly, around the theme of this COVID-19 lockdown, but it's also showed me that I was limited in my thinking of how I technically. So, if I have portable audio equipment, which I have on orders coming soon, I'll be able to do these things much more better quality audio and quicker without having to set up the live streams and stuff like that. So when it uploads nice and clean, and everyone hears it. And so that's something to look forward to. No, I want Vaughn to go places. I think it's captured enough of an audience over the years where it's a standalone product by itself, and I want to make it a more serious show. I want to possibly take it to really good places, maybe do interviews and stuff like that, and to bring it to a level of decency in terms of its production value. To the point where it could stand up alone. I can bring it up to a level where it gets a decent regular audience. So hopefully we can manage that, and so that should be fun and should be interesting to see how that works out. I'm quite buzzing about it at the moment, actually. And well, it'd be good. I want to make a show that people can listen to it late at night in the dark, or while they're driving on roads and stuff like that, where they don't have to look at my fucking face. This kind of thing. Now, so the Corona Chronicles really began with the lockdown and me trying to come to terms with why I was socially isolated and couldn't travel more than a couple of kilometers, and why everyone around me was going nuts. And we as we've done these series of videos, I think we've all learned a lot of things about ourselves more than anything else, and also about the world around us. And I'll do a proper wrap up of the Corona Chronicles, of the whole C19 thing, which as a beginning you've heard me say it's a spiritual thing. And it's a spiritual thing that is much more profound now than I actually fully realised. It's got to the point now where there's hymn sheets, believe it or not, in schools where kids are singing the hymn of COVID-19. And we're seeing videos now of people blessing themselves and stuff like that. I mean, it's really gone. It's gone there. I don't want to stress too much of that, because that'll be on the first part of the first VON program. But in terms of what it's done, well, it's been a transformational experience, definitely for me, and I think it has been in general. Well, the skim of sanity which holds society together was definitely removed, and we saw the world for what it is. Now, I've been saying to you for years that, if you want to see how the human race really is, get yourself a public profile, and then you'll see what it's really like. And the human race isn't pretty. I can tell you, the things that have been done to me over the years by people I did no harm to in any way, just shows how there's a desire by the unclean to feed upon people's charisma. And this is the game. You step into the arena, and that's how the game is played. I've been always very well aware of this. But I think now we're all stepping into the arena with this whole COVID-19 thing, and all the other things that have happened as a result of that, such as the Black Lives Matter thing and everything else. The skim of sanity upon Western society was very thin indeed. And once removed, we saw, just without the economic system to basically glue people together, we saw how mentally ill Western society is on some fundamental levels. A lot of this has to do with the fact that there is a spiritual vacuum within Western society, and in this spiritual vacuum, these are filled, and there was a need for the globalists to fill this need in something that they could guide people with. Now, they tried this with the global warming thing. They even tried the Gaia aspect of that. They even attempted all kinds of elements related to that, to the end where they brought along Greta Thunberg, who was the Saint Bernadette, or one of the Fatima children of the climate change thing. Extinction Rebellion definitely went on an element of religious crusade regarding that whole thing. It never kicked off among the population for the simple reason it was always class orientated. Working class people don't care about these issues because they're trying to survive. They don't. Middle class people who have more upper middle class people have more free time and a desire to be seen as sanctimonious and impress their peers, became involved in this, and it always seemed very unconvincing and fake. And this is why there was no real sincerity to it, and the lack of sincerity to the climate crisis was really brought into focus with Greta Thunberg's manifestation as this bizarre doom goblin. Uh, just the whole concept that adults were taking advice from an autistic child, a teenager that didn't even have any friends. I mean, this is like, and we were, and if you didn't follow her, you were accused of being a terrified, frightened middle-aged man. You were frightened of a little girl, and this trope was played out all through the media. Both the Irish Times and RT here in Ireland had that thing going, and I saw it in other countries too, and it failed miserably. And the whole farcical nature of it was exposed when the COVID event came along, and she was declared then a COVID expert, and even the people who were following her realized that that it was ridiculous and didn't want anything to do it. It was just a staged brat. She was the Shirley Temple of climate change, and Shirley Temple of issues, really. And it didn't fly. It just didn't fly. It was obvious there was an element of having the wool pulled over your eyes, and well, that's what it was, not just an element of it. Now, when the COVID thing first started kicking off at work on my weekend job, when I had a weekend job, and I remember I was talking to the boss there, and he was saying that both, let's hope this thing doesn't go any further. Let's think it does not take off. And I was like, well, we heard this with the swine flu and all the other stuff, and SARS and all the rest of this stuff. It never happened. It never happens, and it still never happened really. And there was 50-50 that something was going to go down, but I think everybody thought it'd be like a week or two of doing people sitting at home or something like that at the most. And at one point they were talking about a 2-year lockdown. Just think about that. And the initial thing of the lockdown was confusion. People sat at home, and not us, I mean normies. They sat at home and they just didn't know what to do. I mean, they just didn't know what happens. So they would watch Netflix, and they would drink lots of alcohol and stuff like that, and just wait, it's almost like waiting for a train or something to get the all clear. And that happened for a couple of weeks, but then the media became increasingly terrifying for these people. You had the constant repetition of numbers dying, the sense of debt, and this kind of thing. And then that really, really took off big time. And that's when the skim of sanity in Western society flew right off. And like I said, we all got to see what I've known for about 5, 8, 10 years now. What human beings are really like. Of course, not everyone, but I mean, what's out there, and we all saw that. The whole the Karen thing, it's like we realized. I mean, I hate that name, the way they use that, but I wish there was a better description for that. But the whole thing, lots of Karens who are cool, but it's like that archetype, the busybody. We saw then, when the Nazi death camps were liberated, so many of the camp guards and most vicious ones in them were often women. And we saw that archetype come to the fore during the lockdown, that these people would call you, would report people for anything, were on, because they were living in terror. They thought they were going to die. And eventually, we saw that, in England, those Thursday night banging the pots and everything. And again, I'll do a more in-depth thing on the religious elements of this. But they developed into a state of madness and hysteria. And what happened was, it couldn't be switched off. Now, it could not be switched off quickly or even slowly. And that's why a lot of them transformed into the Black Lives Matter statue iconoclast, tearing those things down. Something of a perpetual motion of insanity has now been put into motion, and these people will never be normal again, because the conventions of society that had their mass hysteria and group mental illness under control is now gone, and we'll be dealing with these people for a long time. However, this is where I get metaphysical about this stuff. I'm now convinced that the first half of 2020, which really began with, this whole thing started in bulk, and and then ended on the solstice the other day. In that period, what happened was, and I'm absolutely convinced of it now, those of us, people like us, me and you, we're evolving in a different direction. We're literally a different form of humanity now. And we're moving off into what will eventually become our second renaissance. And the other ones, they're going insane and all this madness. And it's been starting, it began with Trump. When Trump got elected, people screaming in the streets and setting themselves on fire and pulling their hairs out. Now, these are people whose world is over, and it's gone. Now, that's not to mean that they'll become extinct and vanish. They're part of a system that's in entropy, and the rest of us who've done the homework, I guess. If you've listened to my VONs over the year, you know what that is. The ability to see the world in archetypes, and yeah, you see things and you're shocked by them, but you don't necessarily become deeply sucked into them. You observe them, and you may be amazed by them, horrified, find them amusing, but you do not quantum couple yourself with them, because and this is what's happening. We've decoupled, and you can go around, say, to many people and say, have you, those Black Lives Matter people are nut jobs, and they'll go, are they? Why? It's just because they're all like, you look at the videos, it's all rich white kids tearing down statues, but they've never had a day of hardship in their lives. Who are they to set themselves up as the spokespersons of black people? Doesn't that make them kind of like racist? Like the black people didn't ask to be represented by them, and here they are, as if they're black folks with children who need guidance. I don't know what you're talking about, they would say. What? Like they don't. You realise that all the NPCs and normies don't have any brains of their own. I was on an Irish soccer group the other day, and there was this Irish asshole, and they had a picture of an Irish player playing for Dundalk, a black guy, and he was holding a Black Lives Matter sign, and I would say half the comments were, "Oh, this stuff is boring. I'm fed up with it. Can we just get back to playing football? First COVID-19, and now this, and a ball hasn't been kicked since the beginning of the year, and this kind of thing." And one guy, just like a typical, like he'd be like Anto from Anto and Deco, and he'd be like, puts up his Black Lives. He's an Irish guy in Ireland, supports Glasgow Celtic. On his poll page is all Celtic this, Celtic that. He puts up the thing, Celtic supporters against racism, and I just commented on it. Well, I said that's pretty fucking ironic, considering that the only reason that people in Ireland support Glasgow Celtic is because of the sectarian elements. And it goes, what do you mean? That's not why people in Ireland support Celtic. Of course it is. I said, if Celtic, if the only, if Rangers, the Protestant team, didn't exist, if the and the Huns didn't exist, you wouldn't have any interest in it. It's purely you're getting sectarianism in Scotland. It's not available to you in Southern Ireland. And how dare you say that? And that's exactly what it was. He's unable to comprehend that he supports a team because he's Irish and Catholic. And you could ask. I mean, you meet these Irish Celtic supporters, and you ask them, name 2 players on the Celtic team, and they can't. All they care about is the match, is the derby against Rangers, and that's only sectarianism, Catholics and Protestants. And yet here's without an ounce of irony, here he is holding up a thing, Celtic supporters against racism. I mean, yeah, but sectarianism is okay though. And so this is what you're dealing with. This is what we're learning. These people are part of a world that's gone, and we're moving on. We're dissidents. We're bohemians. That like a football team, but in the bohemian sense, we're roamers. So we're moving on, and I definitely feel that as clear as anything, because enough people, and not just people like us, there's many normal people in society as well, who now realise that there's a lot of fucking lunatics out there. And the COVID-19 thing really showed that. And there's lots of people sitting at home, like I said, who are saying nothing. They wouldn't be on this radio, wouldn't listen to my videos, they wouldn't be commenting below. They wouldn't be doing anything like that. But they know, they're sitting at home, they're saying, that fucking old bitch at number 23, as she was out banging the fucking pots. And I saw her, and she was going over around to the neighbours who were banging pots, and she said that we didn't come out. And she said number 46, they didn't come out, and number 59 didn't come out. She was keeping fucking dossiers on who didn't come out. And a lot of that was going on. A lot of that shit was going on. And for every one of those evil old bitches who were doing that, there was people at home going, now I really know what my neighbours are like. The ones who didn't come out and bang pots and pans are probably the normal ones. The ones who did are terrifying, and they're dangerous. They're fucking dangerous. And now they've got an education of a lifetime. They may not have any interest in me or this kind of broadcast or anything like that, but they're definitely coming with us. They're sitting at home, and they're quietly like a flower, and they're unfolding in a new direction, because they now see how the game works. And I've noticed that with the lockdown ending, I think a lot of these people will not go back into society. A lot of the ones who have evolved away, they may have done regular weekly things. They may have take part in normie things, but getting a break from it was like a junkie going cold turkey, or an alcoholic on the wagon, and suddenly they don't want to go back. They don't want to do that. They're going to find something more meaningful of life. And a lot of that has happened. That's what I'm saying about the second renaissance. These people are quiet people. They're not on the internet shouting. They're not watching shows like this. They're not commenting on it. But they do exist. For every one person that follows me on social media agreeing with this, there's about 10,000. About 100,000 who are sitting at home and feel the same way, but just they're not part of our process. But they're coming with us. I really do believe that there's been a division, and this is what's happened. It's almost like, you're in a relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship. There is a crisis point where something happens, and you realize, well, this person is not really the friend that they're pretending they are, or they used to be, or were acting. They've done something here, and it's a crisis point, and the friendship's never going to be the same again, ever, or the relationship, the romantic relationship, or the marriage, or whatever. And most people go begrudgingly walk away. I'm the type that instantaneously just pull up the drawbridge and just go. That's me. I'm usually just like put the saddle on the horse and the wagon and just go. That's just my personality type. And my attitude is like, if they were sincere, they would have mentioned it, or they wouldn't have done it the way they did. And so so the friendship isn't real. Maybe it was real at one time, or maybe the marriage was real at one time. It's not real now. And so my attitude is like, life is short, get out of here. And that's how I do it. I know there's other people do it other ways, but I don't. I've seen people destroyed by being in social circles where they weren't really happy. They were just going along. And I think huge numbers of us, because of the COVID-19 and what's going on with the riots and the Black Lives and all the racist stuff and all that other shite, and their attempt to relaunch Greta Thunberg and a lot of people are no longer going to be going along. They won't be on the streets marching, they won't be on social media sharing memes about being awake, but they're no longer going to go along. And we're going to find this big time. Big time. There's going to be a real, demographic, an army of refusal. They won't refuse vocally as a group, but they'll refuse as individuals in a collective unconscious way. Now, you remember when I said that lots of major archaeological discoveries would be found? Well, that's happening. A massive temple of Shiva has been found in India by ordinary people. Just they found under the sand. And there's today Stonehenge, a new circle of post holes has been found around the outside, making Stonehenge bigger. And there was also major discoveries of the goddess Nemesis in Greece. Now, these are all important things, okay? But I'll start to put the Nemesis and the Shiva one. Now, Nemesis is the Greek goddess of destruction. So therefore, there's the reality before being ripped asunder. Now, Shiva is married in Vedic Hindu mythology. Shiva is married to Kali, and Kali represents the destruction of evil forces. Now, what Kali in this context represents, and Nemesis, is the end of the pathological anima, the toxic female archetype, the kind of world that's given us the likes of Hillary Clinton and these types of characters. These are not Angela Merkel. These women are not suitable for the new paradigm. And that's why they're falling apart and shaking and twisting and all this kind of thing. Now, in the Vedic mythology, Shiva's wife Kali is also his wife as Parvati. Parvati is this kind of like Eve white, Eve black thing. Now, the reason why Kali is invoked by Shiva is she has powers that can only destroy certain demons. And she goes into an enormous wild rage, killing these demons. But her rage is so uncontrollable that she finds it almost impossible to be reasoned with. So before her rage becomes too destructive, Shiva becomes the aspect of an infant child. And upon laying eyes on the infant child, the maternal elements of Parvati in the aspect of the benign wife of Shiva comes into manifestation, and Kali is switched off. That's why in images of Kali, there's often the man at the feet. That's Shiva, her husband, saying, enough, enough, by appealing to her maternal instincts as a mother. And that's a transformation from the toxic anima, which is sometimes needed, to the benign anima. And you will find that a lot of the stuff that we've had regarding dysfunctional elements of females, the Me Too thing, the false accusations, the borderline ascendancy, as you want to call it, the most horrible aspects of women in terms of being vindictive and hateful, and this kind of thing. And in it, that's expressed in archetypes like Angela Merkel, who just don't care. This is what I'm getting, that's the end of it. And there's this dark anima that is now being switched off, and we're moving towards the Parvati aspect, which is women taking roles in leadership who won't be obsessed with abortion, won't see abortion as a holy sacrament. These third wave feminists will all dissipate and die, and so will all this sort of like toxic feminine stuff. And you will have more women in positions of influence and power in this world who will be more maternal, more caring, and more benign. So you won't like the toxic anima reached its peak with the aspect of Hillary Clinton wanting to start World War III, obsessed with it. They're all gone. Their world is over, and a lot of that's why these liberals are all going insane, because they're quantum coupled to these archetypes, which are now dissolving, and so the things are changing, and we're going to see a with this we will see a move more towards feminine and beauty. What you saw like in the Renaissance, you will see this kind of an appreciation. People will be no longer saying that's sexist. A naked woman looks really beautiful. No, and I think Trump's wife definitely typifies this. She's stunningly beautiful, but if you see photographs of her around children, there's a look on her face that's absolutely gorgeous. You can actually see how she delights in the company of children. She's Parvati, really is, and an archetype where, you know, Callie is Hillary Clinton, Angela Merkel. And these are powerful things you've got. Now people go, oh, but she's a Democrat. No, don't see the world in terms of material, earthly labels. Recognize these things in terms of archetypes. Recognize these things in terms and look for the archetype is the roadmap, not the label. The archetype is the roadmap, not the label. And I think as much as Trump was brought in by people who were sick of political insiders, at the same time his wife was also manifested into this project by people who were sick of these toxic females, and these things, these purple-haired homunculum, this kind of thing, screaming and shouting. And I think in the second term, which Trump should get, I can't see, it'd be shocked if he didn't, but just like he does get, we'll just assume he does get it. I think you'll see her moving more to our sort of center stage in the whole thing, as people will want. She represents what a woman should be. She's intelligent, attractive, and kind and caring, and a good mother and a good partner. And she makes you feel good. She's not a bossy, frustrated male in a skirt, well, like we get the other ones. And that would be a refreshing change. I think that's definitely going to, and along with this, we'll lose the soy boys. The soy boys and all these male feminists, they're all part of the problem as well. They will have no future anyway. They will dissipate as well. People tend to watch now. This is an important part of the process going forward. While we observe the unfolding process, and why we watched the saga of COVID-19 and how it fluxed and materialized and changed and meandered, and the effects it had on both ourselves and the world. It's very important that we don't get quantum coupled or psychically attached to what's going down, because we need to conserve our psychic energy for the task ahead. So while you may see something that's like today, I saw like a guy washing his hands and then genuflecting and blessing himself. So it was the religious ritual. I shared that as a laugh, not because I was horrified or disgusted. So be careful about constantly dwelling on as the old paradigm, or should I say the complementary parallel paradigm, is beginning to deteriorate. Don't spend too much of your psychic energy documenting or being obsessed with its deterioration. Recognize it, and if you do have comments about it, laugh at it. Do not get yourself frustrated or upset by it, because then it still has you. And then eventually that will dissipate out of your conscious awareness. At the same time, too, you're moving forward. You're moving forward into somewhere else. So only use that as a reference point for what we're escaping and why we have to escape it. And that's what that's really about. And this is a very, it's a process of self-love. I mean, it's a lot of truth that people say, if you can't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. And that's not the same thing as narcissism. A lot of that stuff will also vanish as well. This whole thing of like, everyone has a fucking disorder and stuff like that. That'll all end. People will be much more relaxed about these things and less judgmental, because they'll be surrounded by people who will be like them, who won't be as dysfunctional, because the dysfunctionals are dissipating within the parallel paradigm. They're dissipating there, and they're vanishing, and that's there. You're in a new situation with a new social circle, a new life, and a new world where the people, you have a lot more in common with them. So therefore, there's less schisms, there's less friction, there's less reason for having fallouts or disagreements, because not because you're all a hive mind, but it's because your lifestyle doesn't necessarily conflict with your new friends. Like, it's what I was always talking about, the soul tribe. This is the soul tribe. I mean, the soul tribe that should have developed in the alternative scene in, say, 2011, 2012 didn't manifest because it was fear-based. They were all afraid of fucking chemtrails, being attacked by clouds, and the Illuminati are going to kill them at any minute. And there's going to be FEMA trains and all this just bullshit. And this crowd, they're all wrapped into the Christianity. Well, when is going to be a great awakening? See if this is the greatest thing. The greatest scam was expecting an external awakening, so you don't do it yourself. Well, now you have a chance to do it yourself, but you're doing it yourself with a team, with a tribe. So it's working this time. It's happening. Like I said, from day one, 2020 is what 2012 was supposed to be. This is what it is now. There's enough data and enough feelings have been collected. And we've all made mistakes. We've all done things we shouldn't have done. We all went down routes that we shouldn't have went down. We all did glorious things. We all did, this is all part of the story of life. Don't trust anyone who's perfect, and don't trust anyone who's imperfect all the time. The thing is that these imperfections are challenges. These mistakes are challenges, and challenges implement solutions. And those solutions are the building blocks of reality. This is what's happening. Even I was reading even articles in the New Scientist recently about the people who developed the theory of dark matter. Are just saying, oh, we don't even know what that is now. Yes, it exists, but what is, even we don't even have the basic understanding of reality. Physics can't even tackle the basic understanding of the universe. So this idea of a complete picture, that's all end, the theory of everything, that cannot ever happen. And one of the reasons it can't ever happen is because, are we observing or are we creating? I think there's an element of both. Very much so. I mean, as I said today, the mysteries and the changes in the dynamics of human consciousness are mirrored in things like what happens in the stars, what rises from the bottom of the deepest waters. These are the kind of things that go on. These are the kind of the portents, what is in the caves. And that's why the unearthing, I knew that there'd be major archaeological discoveries, because even if you find an arrowhead in your backyard, that wanted to be found by you so you could unlock secrets about your own dynamics, the dynamics of your own psyche. And that's why it was central to things like Carl Jung's famous dream, uh, that made him understand the nature of the unconscious. He went down below to ancient buildings, and to the bottom he found the most earliest human forms of pottery, which is at the same time, amazingly, was echoed in H.P. Lovecraft's story The Rats in the Wall, where the Delamere guy goes down into the bottom of the old family ancestral estate until he reaches the darkest secrets of his tribe, at the lowest early primal primal state, subterranean depths of the family estate. That's when he gets to the truth of himself and his tribe. And this is remarkable. This is why art writers and artists are shamans. This is why they're there. This is why they exist. And we all, this is what when the whole thing COVID first happened, there was loads of people reporting they were having strange and intense dreams. Yeah, they were having spiritual experience. Many people are too busy working, paying bills, just trying to survive the noise and confusion of everyday living. Were actually having these mad dreams because they were having their first spiritual experience through the oracle of the dream world. And they were like calling up their psychiatrist saying there's something wrong with you having these incredible dreams. I mean, that's how far detached from reality they are. Where if you've been watching this or following me, or even going back to the old VON programs, for years, I've talked about the importance of dreams. They are part of the building of your magical state. Then the understanding, the recognizing, the involvement with dreaming, and the importance of that, because that develops you into a more charismatic state of grace, to allow you to move into the world of magic and spirituality in a much more easier and less traumatic way. By trauma, I mean being flaky and shallow and superficial, and it blowing up in your face. This way you have a sense of maturity. There's no use learning how to fly a plane if you don't know how to land it. And a lot of people go into the spiritual world or the magical world, flying the plane but not knowing how to get the undercarriage down and land on the runway. And this is why this was such a spiritual experience. We all discovered our spiritual nature, but we also discovered that there's dark forces in the world. And this was like the whole thing went in tandem last year. When I look back now, when I talk about octopus consciousness, that try to imagine the octopus and its importance. It's as an alien species under the sea and communicate. And suddenly octopuses were everywhere. Well, yesterday in my hometown of Dublin, there was a beautiful sculpture of marine creatures with the central point as an octopus, and the statue iconoclast attacked it with fire, and they burnt only the octopus. And that was a portent for me. That was an orchery, and that told me that here we go, we're in a new world. And that was the dying screams of the ancient world, not the ancient world, of the obsolete parallel paradigm that we're moving. It's like two race cars going around a Formula One track, and but eventually one gets the right flow and it moves away, and the other one can never catch up. And that's what's happened. We're moving away from it doesn't mean it's destroyed, it doesn't mean it's gone, it's just mean we've left it behind and we've moved on. And so there's a lot of positives in this. It's all positive. And so, but the important thing I would stress at the end of this let's think about it, right? We've gotten through this whole COVID-19 thing. We sat here and made these videos. We've learned things about ourselves, both our attributes and our limitations, okay? By knowing your limitations, you know what to waste your time upon, okay? And the biggest limitation that we all learned is we can't change these people. We can't change these normies. We can't change these NPCs. So fuck them, okay? That's the first one. It's just like a dead marriage or a dead relationship. It's gone, okay? Don't try to save. Don't try to keep the body alive by putting a hairdryer to it. We have learned to go deep into ourselves, okay? And we have also learned the power of the absurdist way of thinking. The satires, seeing all these Egypts walking around the masking in terror, banging the pots and pans, okay? We've developed a very powerful one in that. We've also discovered that we can survive fine in a quieter, more relaxed world. And that's a really big one. So the hermit became very central to us. And the most important one of all is that we have learned that it's okay to be ourselves. That this over overriding need to be connected to a group directly all the time is something that's probably holding us all back. And so many people use this period of the lockdown of the Rona, the whole Rona experience, to say, I don't like that guy. I don't want to be his friend anymore. He showed his true colours by being a dick. He's panicked. I don't want him around me. Uh, my girlfriend makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't really like her anymore. She's gone. This kind of thing, and people have disconnected. At the same time, too, you'll have people in your life saying, "I'm so glad I have this person as my friend. I'm so glad I married this man. He's been great, you know." And so this has been a kind of a distillation of ourselves, a refinement. We've become distillated, and we've become, in many ways, more beautiful. I feel more happy and content inside me at the end of this Rona thing than I did at the beginning. Not that I was in a bad way, but I feel great now. Social isolation was good for me, and I feel much better connected to you guys. And I have to say, I've realized now that for the last, out of fear of protecting myself, especially on things like social media, I was very, I wouldn't say aloof, but I was probably too overprotective of myself. And therefore, I wouldn't say I was paranoia, but I was probably too tough on people that didn't deserve it. Mainly because I'd been basically attacked from day one. But now I realize it's because I'm very likable. People care about me. People consider me to be very sincere and straightforward, and that was very difficult for me to come to terms with, because I don't know myself that way. I don't know. I mean, the outpouring of love that was given towards me, I honestly have to say, in some levels I didn't trust it. But now I realize I was wrong not to trust it. And I should have surrendered to it and embraced it better than I did. And I reacted to that quite badly. And now I realize I'm very comfortable with being loved. I mean, on the macro level, I've never had any problem being loved in my daily life, friends and relationships. But on the macro level, I'm quite comfortable with that. I'm able to accept love from the whole much better now, because I realized that that's sincere, that was genuine, and that was real caring. And I come from a background where things like that didn't happen. You know, I didn't have that really growing up. So it was always, it seemed kind of fake or something to me. But now I realized, well, it's been the process I've developed. It's sincere, it's genuine. And a lot of that comes from having a difficult childhood, and I don't talk about that in my private life at all because it's not important. But my childhood was not easy at all, and it wasn't horrible, but there was definitely, you put it this way, the ghetto was always there. It's always there, and you have to. That's what I've done. I've unplugged the ghetto finally from me. I'm not in the Ballymount flats anymore, and I don't have these defense mechanisms up anymore from other people that I used to have, that you get in the ghetto to try and survive. And that was what made me. That's what I've got from it, and that's how I feel. I feel like I feel just very full of appreciation for other people now. I'm really glad who I have in my life. Uh, there's a strong sense of connectivity and genuine affection that's in this soul tribe we have. And so that's been my revelation, that it's made me no longer afraid to accept a torrent of love coming my way, because now I realize it's all, at this stage in my late life. But as I say, these things are hard to get out of when you've been beat into as a child. Come out of me like that, So I'm okay with that, and and you'll all find similar things too, and negative things. I tend to be too much of a shut in. I tend to be what's the word? It's intolerant of people who were not meaning to do me any harm, but that was a defense mechanism. So I've let go of that, and it's almost like a dam burst inside me. And a lot of this has to do with my mother's been very ill, and that's been confronted, and that dealing with that and watching that process unfold, and that was an education for me, and so it was definitely I'm ready with a clean slate now, to not a clean slate, but shall we say, like I said, the word distillated really works well, and I think all of you are probably feeling the same way, and all of you have got this from the process, and just think how wonderful that is. We had governments who panicked, but also agendas at the globalist level to try and wreck us, okay? The economy, because like I said, it was part of this process was to wreck the economy, to cause problems in society. And we see the people who have been damaged by it, they're attacking statues, they're attacking other people, they're going nuts, okay? What they didn't expect is what happened on this channel and what happened between us here. That we actually use this as a fertilizer to grow as individuals and to look forward to a future that without them able to mess us up. And while there'll be always people say they're going, like that's why we said when people say things, what about the vaccine? Fuck the vaccine. They're not going to bring in a mandatory vaccine. They won't do it. The normies will line up and want it. They don't care about you. Why are you worried about something? All right, they're not after you. And this has always been a great cancer within the alternative scene, is having people in terror to trap them. So you will keep listening to my radio show if you're in terror and I'm the one who can help you. This kind of thing. You'll keep buying my books if I keep you in terror and you think that buying this book will make you happier. Well, I've never played that game ever. I've always said to people, you're in charge, observe, get out of it if it's damaging, move on. But like life, ultimately salvation is a self-made thing. This is the whole thing of the monomyth. And every one of you and me and the rest of us watching these programs on this channel, these videos, these vlogs, we have all gone through the monomyth. And this is it. This was the element of the war as such. Like the monomyth, you'll have the element of being stuck into a war, but then you have help, comradeship, you have encouragement, you have the collective unconscious there for you, and I feel that we have that all here. So, in closing, if I haven't been too sappy, thank you for this. People have thanked me for this, but honest to God, I think I've gained more from you guys than you've ever gained from me, and therefore this has been a blessing for me. I mean, your engagement in this was the fertilizer that allowed the flowers that had not blossomed in me to finally blossom. So don't. It was never a case of me doing you a favor. You lot did me a favor, much, much more, and that's something I'll always be grateful for and thankful for, no matter how long I live or whatever, anything like that. And so, what was supposed to be a terrible experience for us actually probably turned out to be a mystical journey into ourselves, into what we are, and out the other side as a new version of ourselves. Distillated, maybe not perfect, but definitely more able to embrace the world that's coming ahead. So thank you for all this time. Look after yourselves, and now it's your turn, and love yous all, and may the gods and goddesses look after you.